And happy Earth Day to everybody. And we still have an Earth to celebrate.
We do.
And I'm just gonna bring up my notes here. Bring up this here. So this is the April 22nd Climate Action Committee meeting. So first order of business actually we should make the comments and announcements. And I had a couple of things just to mention. One is that there's an MCI Concord Advisory Board workshop on the 30th of this month, on April 30th. And we'll be talking about the MCI input process before that, but that's a date that people can come and hear what other people are thinking and put in their thoughts. I'm not sure how it's organized. Do you know any more about it?
I know it's a drop-in session. There's one from 3 to 5 and then 6 to 8 or 9. So I don't know if if it's a formal presentation. It really sounds like it really is a drop-in session. I think there'll be boards up and really looking for feedback.
I looked at the website.
Yeah.
Today, and it did give 2 sessions. It's
Right.
in the high school cafeteria.
Yeah.
And it was.
The evening one's not in the high school, is it?
No, they are. It's
I thought they're both.
Both in the high school, okay. Good. And I know that, so another thing I know is that the drop-off swap-off on May 3rd still needs more volunteers. I mean, not like we're not volunteering enough, but it's fun.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, you meet lots of people, say hello to people you don't often see, and it's good to do.
Do they meet people on Friday afternoon?
Say it again?
Do they meet people on Friday afternoon? I didn't see that in 25.
Oh,
I don't know.
Sometimes they.
Friday afternoon, there is some collection for the swap off, but there's no selling of anything until,
Right,
I don't know.
Yeah.
but you go to
Never know.
reuseit.org in order to sign up?
Reusit.org has all the information. Yes.
Uh-huh.
And Scott at the Concord Camp meeting showed there are a lot of empty spaces still. A
Yeah,
lot of people need to sign up.
right. The work will get done somehow, but
It will, I'm sure Fred knows how to put his persuade on.
I noticed, I was just sent information about a session at the First Religious Society of Carlisle, which is the church right near the Rotary there, Unitarian Church, on taking climate action together and now. That's on May 4th at 7:15 p.m. Any other announcements that about upcoming events or? Yes.
So hi, I'm Gwen. I'm here to talk about escar poisoning and trying to ban them, but we're having an educational forum on Zoom on May 5th at 7 p.m. And so I can give you the registration link. I'll send it out to you after this meeting. But we'd love to have you learn more about the issues.
5th, 7 p.m.
7 p.m. Yep, on Zoom.
Okay. So on meetings and minutes, well, first of all, we need to choose a clerk for tonight. Jerry did it last month, did a great job.
Maybe I should. I hate doing it, and I've always avoided doing it, but I guess I'll do it.
Okay.
This will be the last one.
It'll be the
Yeah.
last one, yes, it will.
Okay, fantastic. So
But, you know,
that's,
it helps to have the recording also.
excellent. Now we can discuss Jerry's minutes from March 25th, which he sent around.
I only saw one error.
You found an error?
I did.
Send it back.
Megan's name was misspelled.
You're
Oh, I
too
found
late.
that one too.
Yeah,
You know what? I looked at them and I didn't even notice that. so-
he found more than you did. He found them several of them.
Oh, you were very consistent in spelling
I
Megan with
was.
an H. And it
Yeah.
is the more common way of spelling it.
Well,
Well,
thank you.
Megan's, your
Yes,
co-conspirators, MEAG.
HAN, right, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Right, that,
did you find other errors?
That one, Betsy's name was misspelled, and then there was some spare punctuation.
Okay,
Yeah, he sent that to me
Okay,
before
good.
the meeting and I corrected it.
okay,
So I have if there are no other edits, I've got a final version.
fantastic. I didn't find anything. I mean, I thought it was good.
Thanks.
So I'd be prepared to have somebody propose to accept it.
I propose to accept the minutes as corrected.
Second,
Okay, so it's just the four of us, all in favor of accepting the minutes? We have accepted minutes.
I'll send you the corrected ones after
Yeah.
the meeting.
Thank you. We'll get it posted. And let's see, update coming meeting dates for May and June. Well, let's not worry about June. But May, I think we even discussed it. So, May, at the end of the month, there's a holiday, Memorial Day. And then the day after that holiday, which would be the Tuesday, is both select board and planning board. So I think we were thinking of maybe having it on the week before the Tuesday to May 20th. Does that sound,
That makes sense
That's
to
what I
me.
have on my calendar.
Yeah, so in the last meeting, we decided that the May meeting would be on the 20th.
okay, good. I wasn't sure if it was a decision. I don't,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Do we
so
need-
that stands, right?
Okay, that can stand.
Okay.
Good. And at that meeting, we can select the next chair. Because we don't have enough people here to do that now. I think we're in the middle of a high school vacation week
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So we're missing Paul, we're missing Catherine, unless they walk in.
We have more.
And we're missing, who else are we missing? Cheryl.
Cheryl,
And they're probably on, I know Catherine's away. She was gonna try to tune in, but you can understand why people don't necessarily if they're on vacation. Paul may join at some point. Always busy. Okay, so let's see, for chair updates, just to report that we've updated, the committee charge was updated so that we have 7 people. Is that the only change?
I think you're still got a member that you're gonna have to recruit.
Yes, we still have to recruit a member. And I think we have our sights on a member. We have our sights on one potential member. Shelley, who stepped forward.
So,
Did you do a green card already?
yes,
Okay, so it's just a formality. You have to go through the hazing or something.
don't be super happy.
And there's one other one that tuned into our last meeting that I haven't met with, but we should, check again with the town staff, what green cards have been
Sure.
submitted.
Can you do that?
That'd be great. Now I know Tanya made a comment about, specifically putting in, I can't remember exactly the comment, but it was about nature-based restoration solutions and which is part of our charge by virtue of the climate action plan. Were you satisfied with that?
I have not, and thank you for asking me. I am very busy with disclosure preparation and other things, so I have not had a chance to study your proposed plan or draft or anything.
Yeah.
It's just, when I noticed that there was, chart change being made.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring in the fact that in addition to Article 51 of the 2017 town meeting, there is an Article 23 of the 2018 town meeting, which emphasizes natural enhancement and protection.
Yeah.
And we know since then, there's a lot of information also about the importance of protecting natural resources. And I don't see it as emphasized enough in the charge per se. I don't know about the plan. And it would be good to have somebody who represents that aspect of climate change resistance.
Yeah.
And just this morning at the Concord Can, we also heard from Pamela, and I saw it in my emails from groups too, that Endangered Species Act, et cetera, are all being threatened now. So it is even more reason for us locally to make sure that all these different approaches to climate change and healthier living are all addressed. So thank you very much for letting me say
Yeah.
this upfront. Thank you.
Now, as I see it, the Natural Resource Commission, Delia, and the monthly event that she has is also very focused on climate and a lot more expertise there. So to work together with them on that, where that kind of falls more into their charge.
Yeah,
But-
but except that's not a commission, that's not a committee, that's just a gathering of people interested in the subject matter of natural environmental issues and climate change now, which was added more in the last couple weeks. So that's really just a group of people who are interested.
Yeah.
So as far as the Natural Resources Commission goes, that is primarily concerned with kind of regulatory approvals and things. They don't really create policy.
Okay,
They kind of, adjudicate policies that people put, wetland laws and town bylaws protecting things even better. So I think in terms of policy, I think this committee is kind of where it's at in terms of a formal committee, in terms of emphasizing that, at that 2018 meeting, I remember speaking about how, some years we get a lot of rain, some years we don't get enough. We can't afford to build reservoirs and dikes, but we can enhance the actual natural resources in town that save water and put it in the ground and
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So there are pressures that, we lose trees, we lose wetlands, we lose, put more impervious surface. So anyway,
right,
I'm firmly in favor
okay.
of having it as a policy goal in the climate action plan in some way, shape or form.
So I think implicitly, the charge includes that by virtue of it in the climate action plan, but it's not.
Yeah, the Sustainable Concord plan does
Yeah.
include natural resources.
Right, and preparedness and the
Mhm.
rest of the world. It's just too much. But okay. Anyway, that's what it is for now, is change to the size of the committee. And okay, so that's all pretty much I had to say. And we can move on from there. Now Eric isn't here. Did he send something, any update?
I apologize. We didn't get a chance to cross paths in, the preparation for the 250th last
Right.
week. What it was consuming for me,
Totally.
and then I didn't have a chance. We had a scheduled meeting that I had to cancel due to, preparing for the Emergency Operations Center, so I didn't have a chance to overlap with him. But I will connect with him this week and we could send something out in writing for updates. I mean, a lot has been going on.
Sure. No,
But I
know-
don't feel so prepared to, give an update on all the items.
I know he did submit the proposal, the MVP proposal.
Yes, yep,
Which
yes.
is pretty major.
that was a heavy lift, yes.
That's the one we talked about last month that we may hear in June. Do you know any more about it in terms of other communities that are signed on, or is it mainly Concord and Oars?
Oh, no, it was a, application for a coalition.
Good.
Yes, and we had meetings with some of the other communities in the watershed.
Yeah.
And there were letters of support and, a lot of interest, so.
Great,
Concord would be the lead community.
right,
If a community submitted a letter of support as part of that package, does that imply that they are going to be active on the coalition, or is there still more legwork to do with each community?
Good question. I think that, there will be a smaller group of a kind of a steering committee. With some of the communities, I think I think with the number of communities in the watershed and their different staffing levels, maybe some won't have the capacity to participate as often. But, I think the ones we got letters from, definitely felt like there was a lot of interest, and so we'll probably, hopeful that they will be able to commit a little bit more time as we're going through the process, if we get it.
okay.
Would we be in bounds to accept a written report from Eric later and incorporate it into the minutes of this meeting?
Well, not for the minutes of the meeting, because he's not here.
Okay.
I think the minutes only reflects what happens in the room.
So
Pretty much.
to go back to the Salesco River Protection. Is it not yet happening until, is it dependent on other communities accepting the proposal, or have they already joined?
So they're interested, and it's contingent on if we get the grant from the
Okay,
MVP. Municipal vulnerabilities,
Preparedness.
Is that
It's-
state or federal?
that is state.
Okay,
And one more
Brad,
thing,
could I ask, what is MVP?
that's municipal vulnerability preparedness.
Thank you.
Now. It's within the Department of Energy Resources. And they established the program probably like 5 years ago, maybe. We became an MVP community that actually, the original grant paid for the consultant to do the climate action and resilience plan. So it's can be a nice chunk of funds that used well. The grant is for studying, impacts of everything water related in the watershed, like extreme participation as well as droughts and you name it. So, and then you had something, Jerry.
yeah, back to Eric. So, I guess let me describe this chronologically. I met with Eric, Russ, and Megan, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, something like that, to discuss the RFQ, the ESCO RFQ, and
Great.
progress on that. And so Eric sent me the latest draft, which not just me, I think the whole committee.
Right.
What we had discussed when we met is that CAC could have an input to it. But for that to happen, we as a committee needed to get the draft in time for people to review,
Right.
which didn't happen, probably Concord 250 stuff, too many things going on. However, I did do a quick review, and I'd like to make some comments on that, some questions and comments. Maybe the first question, Megan, is it's unclear to me when this is targeted to go out for bid, and what the process is from going forward from now till then to get inputs in. You may have seen my email where I'm concerned about, and I can go into that in a little more detail, the focus of the draft as it exists now.
Mhm.
So what is the process for me, perhaps as an individual or perhaps for this committee, to get our inputs directly into that draft?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that our plan was to try to have the RFQ ready in June to go out. So you do have a May meeting, and maybe that could be kind of a main focus of that meeting. I've been thinking about how to get the Climate Action Committee's feedback as well as other stakeholder
Right.
feedback, because I think
There's a
that
number of groups.
we also need to talk with the select board and the finance committee. You know, there's other stakeholders that could be weighing in, but I also had a meeting with one ESCO vendor to really learn more about the whole process and just kind of get educated as I'm, you know, transitioning here. And I did get some information about how important it is to have an evaluation team for reviewing the quotes on the other side of it too. I mean, I think there's a lot of work to do to review what goes out there, but then to think about, have the team in place, have the stakeholders involved and know how we're evaluating, you know, well, I guess if it's request for quotes, then it's a little different. I'm more in the request for proposals world,
Right.
but similar kind of procurement
Right.
process. And so I've been thinking about that too, about how to make sure we have all the voices at the table, because while, you know, this is a really good example of a project that crosses so many disciplines across the community. We're looking at reducing carbon emissions, we're looking at energy savings, you know, we're working with our facility staff. The schools, I didn't mention them. I mean, that's a key stakeholder for some of the buildings and some of the options. So, I mean, I think I'm open to, you know, and Eric unfortunately isn't here today, but I definitely want to make sure you all have enough time to look at it, and you didn't for today's conversation, you know. And so maybe it's something that is on as a featured,
Yeah.
not to overstep the chair
Sure,
here,
no,
but
that's fine. I think that's it. So this is talking about all the municipal buildings.
Yeah.
Schools is another stakeholder presumably.
yeah, we've been in contact with the schools
Good.
to think about how do we find efficiencies across all of
Yeah.
those buildings.
So procedurally, that sounds good to me. That, you know, we as a committee will have time to review and comment.
Mhm.
I did do a quick review today,
Mhm.
and I want to make a couple of comments because they're pretty significant.
Okay,
This proposal, or I'm sorry, this RFQ is entirely energy-based. There's almost zero references to emissions. In fact, just as some data, emissions shows up twice in the entire document, only twice. GHG or I'm blanking.
Greenhouse gas?
Greenhouse gas, yeah, shows up once, only once. Climate shows up only once. Energy shows up over 200 times, and that doesn't count abbreviations, mnemonics.
Mhm.
So my point is, from my perspective, this is completely a non-starter, because I feel strongly that the criteria by which the ESCO is judged and performs should be based on emissions, not on energy reduction. It's a subtle difference, but it's a significant difference.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of get that out so that you understood that
yeah,
as you and the team proceed to refine the document. I suspect, I don't want to speak to the whole committee, but I suspect that when we all review this thing, we'll all probably line up in a pretty similar way.
oh, really? Okay,
We don't need to
Okay.
speculate. I probably shouldn't have thrown that in, but
Right.
I did.
And the difference between energy and emissions really is it electrified? To first
Well,
order
Think about
is.
the Alcott boiler
yeah,
situation.
that's a good
Right.
example.
Yeah.
That's the classic.
Right,
So the initial proposal from the school committee was, we'll replace the old boiler with a new boiler. The new boiler is more efficient. We're making progress. Yay.
right.
No. And the reason that's insufficient is that new boiler, whatever implementation you use, it's gonna have a lifetime of 20, 25 years. And so we would be committing ourselves to the use of gas in that building for another 20, 25 years.
Right,
The same situation applies with all the other municipal buildings. We will be faced with a decision of how do we replace the existing infrastructure and doing so in a climate-friendly manner. If we do not do it that way, we have zero hope, in my opinion, of meeting our climate goals.
right.
Make
Okay.
sense?
It makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why we're here.
When, and maybe next month would be more appropriate to get into it, but I definitely wanna hear from everyone at that time. Of
course.
And dig into it a little bit more. Cause one thing that I like about the Alcott example is, the example, like you said, like, okay, are we gonna replace the boilers and make it more efficient, but not meet our goals, right? Or we can fully electrify the whole building, which will be millions of dollars.
Or there's a.
Or there's the middle ground,
There was a middle ground. which
right?
is-
So how are we designing this so that we can look at
Yeah.
all the factors,
Yeah.
not just greenhouse gas emissions, but cost, like in this kind of this climate of, you know,
Right.
the fiscal review here, so that we can evaluate projects, so that we can try to find the options that work through the different lenses, right?
Sure.
Like that's where I'm trying to come from. And maybe we didn't hit the mark with this, right? But I
Yeah.
think that's what I just want to share here.
Yeah.
For this to be a multi kind of a program across the community, where we have to look at it through a few different lenses, like in our Envision Conquer 2030, right? There's like
Right.
the factors of how to evaluate different projects that come up. And so we need to be, I think this effort is trying to find a path forward that is beneficial in multiple different
Right.
Well, that was
areas.
one of the reasons in a prior email I had suggested that the RFQ specify that they produce several options for each of the buildings.
Mhm,
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know, a
definitely.
full electrification to, you know, minimum change to something in the middle.
Yeah.
That would provide the town some flexibility in juggling these various constraints.
That sounds right, yeah.
In my mind, the other part of this is the decarbonization roadmap. The Alcott boiler,
Yeah.
the Alcott situation is a good example. If the roadmap says, you know, for something that looks cost effective, we reduce by 50% next year with and then we, you know, over time, we envision completing the job, you know, 10 years from now. I don't know what the roadmap looks like. That's the thing that Power Options was interested in doing. That's kind of ties it all together.
It does, but the ESCO is the one who will be providing ideas and options and
Yeah,
operations.
right,
You know, they will be assisting our facilities department with operational improvements. So they're not just doing a paper design.
right. Okay,
And so, yeah, I'm with you completely. The roadmap tells us kind of priorities and when we might need to do which. You know, with this building this year, that building in 5 years, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah,
I don't know that the ESCO is going to give us that kind of,
okay,
they might, I just don't know. But I want to point out, since I was critical of the RFQ as it stands, that there's a part that I very much like, and that is there's a second part, which is the investment grade audits. And that comes up front. And so that is, I understand it will sort of take an inventory of what we've got and what's the situation with each of the buildings and perhaps how urgent it is that we
yeah,
address those. So, and that can be pulled out of this. I shouldn't say pulled out. It's separate from other parts of the ESCO agreement. So I think that's really good. But as I
Okay.
stated before, it's a non-starter for me if it's not
Okay,
working on emissions.
good for you. Thank you.
Makes sense.
Okay. Note that Paul Kirshen on the committee has joined the meeting, so we have 5 of us.
Yes, I noted that, thank you.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
So we are next talking about,
Brad, Pamela has her hand up.
oh, Pamela, did you have a hand up? Sorry, I'm not watching hands.
Thank you, Pamela, 13 Concord Green. I hope that when we consider the economic impacts of various infrastructure developments, we consider the cost of not transitioning to fully electric as well, because all of the fossil fuel boilers and things that we put in are going to be stranded assets. First Parish invested in a magnificent gas stove that we're going to have to remove. I mean, the long-term cost, we need to consider the cost, the lifetime costs of the things as investments, not just the initial cost. And the lifetime costs of not doing it in terms of fossil fuel and the externalized costs of climate change from pumping all that carbon out. We shouldn't be spending as a town $1 on fossil fuel infrastructure, including diesel buses.
Thank you. And one of the things she mentioned is you could include carbon cost per ton. That's an estimate of the external cost. It's a moving target and it's not well defined, but it might be $100 a ton.
Well, the RFQ as it sits right now includes some language on how those computations would be done. But
Okay,
those computations don't include emissions.
okay,
Hmm.
okay. So, don't want to get behind. We're up to item 5, which is the ESCAR rodenticide
Excellent.
article.
All right, what would be the best way? Could you project the slides?
Yes, I can. Just, did you attach them to that email today, Brad? I think.
What did you say?
Did you,
Yeah.
you attach
Yes.
them? Okay, let me just pull them up.
Yeah, the pagination is a little bit different, but while she's doing that, I'm Gwen Shipley. I live at 89 Wilson Road. I wanted to I'm here to talk about ESCARs, which are second generation anticoagulant rodenticides. And I was trying to think like, okay, well, how does this tie in with the Climate Action Network? And the Climate Action Committee. And I was thinking that one way that occurred to me is, you know, as the climate gets more unstable, you know, we're taxing all of our wildlife. And then this is another way, by introducing these ESCARs into the environment, is another way that we unfortunately tax our wildlife. So let's keep that in mind as we hopefully can ban them here. All right, how's it going?
Okay, just give me 1 second.
Oh, enabling it. Yeah, let's see. So this is what I decided to do, was just to give you my 5-minute presentation that we will give to the town meeting. There's been a few edits, although we're still struggling with fixing some statistics, which is finding statistics turns out to be a challenge. All right, you ready?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna time myself if you don't mind so that I can practice. Okay, good. All right, good evening. My name is Gwen Shipley, 89 Wilson Road, and I'm here to discuss Article 36, which seeks a town-wide ban of second generation anticoagulant rodenticides, otherwise known as ESCARs. These poisons threaten wildlife, pets, and human health. Together, we can create a safer environment for all residents, both human and animal. So what are ESCARs? You know those black boxes that you see so often around buildings? Studies have shown that 96% of bait boxes in Massachusetts contain ESCARs. ESCARs is short for second generation anticoagulant rodenticides. Basically, they are rodent poisons that kill by preventing clotting, causing internal bleeding. Because of this, ESCARs are banned for retail sale due to the risks to pets and children. The town of Concord does not currently use them on municipal properties, which is great. But SCARs are still widely used by licensed professionals, particularly on private and commercial properties, including here in Concord. If I needed to deal with a rodent problem at home, unless I ask specific questions, I might not even know whether SCARs are being used. That's why we're seeking a home rule petition to expand protections. Next. So what is the problem with SCARs? They bioaccumulate like DDT's effect on bald eagles and other raptors before its 1972 ban. Many people assume bait boxes trap the rodent, but they don't. The rodent eats the bait and leaves the box alive, taking the poison into the environment. Since it can then take the rodent days to die, the weakened animal may be eaten by a fox, a hawk, an owl, or even a pet, passing the poison up the food chain. Here are some statewide statistics to help us understand the scope of the problem. 100% of red-tailed hawks brought to the Tufts Medical Center tested positive for SCARs. 98% of deceased fishers also tested positive. Nationwide, 82% of sampled bald eagles had been exposed to SCARs. Hundreds of raptors, foxes, coyotes have been reported to die each year, and those, of course, are only the ones that have been brought to a wildlife center and been tested. Similarly, dozens of cats, dogs, and other household pets are also affected each year, as are people. Studies show us that nearly 100 people are exposed annually, almost half of whom are children under 6. So is there an alternative? Yes, there are humane and more effective alternatives known as non-SCAR integrated pest management plans, or IPMs. They typically include 4 ways to help eliminate rodents: excluding, starving, targeting, and last resort, poisoning. Excluding rodents is achieved by sealing up any cracks, gaps, holes, and crevices. We can then starve the rodent by properly storing food and ensuring that trash and compost receptacles are contained. Exclusion and starvation make an area immediately less attractive to rodents. If there are still rodents, then they can be targeted by using snap traps, gassing burrows with carbon dioxide, and encouraging natural predators like raptors to help manage populations. Did you know that one owl can eat 1,000 mice in a year? There's another reason we want to ban SCARs, as they kill or weaken our natural predators. As a last resort, there are some poisons that are non-SCARs, such as vitamin D3 and Radex, which is used by the town of Concord on municipal properties. These poisons don't work their way up the food chain, so do not cause the same amount of environmental devastation that SCARs do. Banning is a statewide initiative. 9 towns have already passed home rule petitions, and 7 more will vote soon. 24 towns have already reduced SCAR use on municipal properties, including Arlington, Lexington, and Lowell. And at least 83 communities across the state have active groups organizing to reduce SCAR use. Right now, SCARs are not used on municipal properties in Concord, but we can't prevent the use of SCARs on private or commercial properties without state approval, hence Article 36. A yes vote on this article would allow us to petition the state for a home rule exemption so that we can protect our entire community, not just municipal spaces. Our town can demonstrate to the state that safer, more humane pest management is both possible and necessary. Concord has a rich history as a leader in environmentalism and conservation. If we look to a relatively recent environmental success story, we can see how citizens' action can save the lives of animals. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, there were fewer than 500 nesting pairs of bald eagles in the country in 1963. And now, after the DDT ban, there are over 70,000. Let me end with a quote by Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Please join us in eliminating SCARs in Concord.
We're 11 seconds over.
All right. Anyway, so that's our plan, and we're hoping, thank you. We're hoping that that the town will join us in sending a message to the state that these SCARs should be banned. Yeah.
And presumably a complementary effort by not necessarily this committee, but
Yes.
somebody to show those alternatives.
Right, and so that's
It's-
why we're having an informational Zoom on May 5th. And we're talking about those alternatives. It's pretty easy. You just have to call your pest control company and say, stop using SCARs in my house. Or stop using them in my business. And then, so let's say that you do that and they say, oh, but we need SCARs. So on our website, we're in the process of making a list of companies that come to Concord and are more than happy to not use SCARs on your property. So, you know, we're hoping it's not gonna be that onerous of a task. You know, I know that there's been some other bans that have been sort of, you know, costly to do, et cetera, and put a lot of burden on the individuals and on some of the companies. But we think it won't be the case, hopefully, in this situation. Yeah, you had a question?
I think you should include that there is a list of pest control people that do not use their scars.
Yeah. We should include that in our town meeting
You
thing.
don't need to articulate them, but just say.
Yeah.
We have a list of.
Yeah, I just spent today calling around to see, is it okay if I put your name on that list? Is it okay if I put your name on this list? So, and if you'd like to know, even before we get the list up on our website, we have cards here and you're welcome to email us and I'm happy to tell you that. Yeah. Mhm.
Do you expect any organized opposition to this?
You know, we don't, knock on wood.
Mhm.
You know, unlike the leaf band, it's not a big sell for the company to then switch to using like Rad-X or something. So we're not anticipating a big thing. There is some, you know, nobody likes to be told what to do, right? So that's of course a concern that maybe some of the pest control companies will say, you know, I shouldn't have a law telling me this. I need to get rid of these animals. And so this is how I'm gonna do it. So, yeah. Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the town of Concord does not presently use this. Is that by a formal town policy or is that a happy market-based coincidence?
It is a happy market-based coincidence because most of the people that we've talked to in Concord realize, like Delia and Russ, and they all know like SCARs are not good. So they've chosen not to use them on properties. And so we looked into that, right? We were like, okay, well, let's just make that official, because what if, you know, they all get fired or something, right? And so, but we haven't been able to figure out, and maybe Wendy has an idea here, but the select board seems to not have that jurisdiction, so does it have to go through the town meeting? We can't quite figure it out. I sent an email over to council, but I'm sure that everyone is totally stressed about the 250th, so I haven't heard back yet, but it was kind of a game, like, does that make sense to do? On the one hand, yes. On the other hand, if we're already not using it, maybe it makes sense to go for the bigger fish.
And regardless of what happens at town meeting, you're gonna go to the legislature. In the last legislative session, there were 5 home rule petitions on this, none of which got any farther than second reading in the Senate.
Yep,
Or past second reading, didn't get to third.
right,
So you've got an uphill battle in the legislature.
we do.
Is there something that should be pursued in the townhouse just to ensure that as a formal policy, Concord doesn't do this in municipal buildings, absent a bylaw?
Yes,
Because you're
right.
gonna be waiting for 2 years.
Right. So I have 2 thoughts on that. One is that there is now in front of the state, a statewide, bill to ban them statewide. And so of course, if that happens, then the town of, you know, municipal properties would no longer be able to use them. In terms of getting it on the books, we would love to do that, but we don't quite know if we need to go through, and so we're still waiting to hear on like the legalities of how our town charter is written. Is that the jurisdiction of the select board? Is that the jurisdiction of, you know, Russ Carlstad? I don't know, and nobody seems to know. So if anyone has any thoughts here, we'd love some help with this, but we haven't been able to ferret that out.
And do you, one more question, I
Sure.
think, do you know of any landscaping companies and pest control companies operating in the town of Concord today that use these today?
Oh, that use them in Concord?
Mhm.
Yes, yep, we do, we do, we do.
Yeah, there
Yes,
needs to be a
unfortunately.
blacklist as well as a green list.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I know, but
That
that, I'm not sure I'm willing to go there.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if I'm that brave. We'll see, we'll see.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily trying to out anybody as
No, no.
being bad for our environment,
Right.
although it would be nice to know. I want to make sure that we're actually solving a problem that exists.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, just, one of our steering committee members, her dog was brought to the vet just what, 2 weeks ago now, because they had ingested escars in Concord. So unfortunately, it is not, we're not exempt.
How are the kids? The kids are not presumably eating mice. How are the
No,
kids
they
getting
eat the
exposed?
poison.
Directly.
Right, so the bite boxes, are supposedly tamper-proof, but if they get driven over or opened up for some other way, and then,
Right.
poison is tasty, right? That's it's like lead paint tasting like sugar, right? I mean, so unfortunately, that's how that has happened. And numbers are way down, it's been banned for retail sale, but you can still buy it online. I was talking to a pest guy today and he was like, yeah, I think a lot of the problem is not the pest control companies, but the people who just buy it online and don't realize what they're buying and put it in their basement. So I don't know how to handle
But they
that
don't have
yet.
the bosses.
Right,
That's,
Got it. Interesting.
I mean, that's an education effort, and
Right.
of course, having something at town meeting will raise the awareness.
yes, that was our thinking. And part of this will be, the Board of Health. We've talked to Melanie Deanan and she's agreed to kind of put some on their website about, the dangers of this, certainly to humans and pets, but also, in general. So we're optimistic and, we would love any support that anyone can offer.
I am fully in support of what you are doing,
Thank you.
but as with the Climate Action Committee, can you think of something that is relevant?
Well, it's
to climate
resilience, right?
action?
It's
Yes.
biodiversity and having a resilient population. We're poisoning the
Yeah.
food chain.
Right.
And we're
Mhm.
seeing,
I'm
you know,
just
larger
asking Megan to.
predators.
Sure. Yeah, right. So if we look at, say, wolves, and now we see a burst in the deer population, right? Which then is leading to these tick-borne diseases, et cetera, and also, nobody can grow vegetables. But, but we also, we can see the same thing. If we were to eradicate all the raptors in Concord, imagine all of the small animal populations rocketing.
Mhm.
And as I would argue, we're already taxing our wildlife by having an unstable environment. And so that's another sort of into.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's another example of a natural system with balance and natural controls, and this particular chemical, going, accumulating in the raptors and predators is big. You're removing your natural.
Right, so then you're making it worse, then you need more poison, we're all familiar with this cycle, unfortunately. So anyway, I'm trying to channel my inner Rachel Carson.
I mean, as one comment made at the Concord Can meeting was, a lot of the rodents in this Concord are squirrels as opposed to rats. And I don't know if people use them to get squirrels, but
Yeah,
squirrels can be real pests. They certainly are.
and certainly could be eaten by a red-tailed hawk and have the escarres go up. The statistics are really about bait boxes, which are not geared towards the squirrels,
Okay.
but,
Got it.
I haven't heard a lot about certainly there's some bycatch, right? The chipmunks and the squirrels that might, eat the poison, but
Yeah. Okay.
they're certainly geared towards the rats and the mice. Cool. I don't want to run over my time, but do you have
Okay.
other questions?
Well, we should decide as a committee whether we should take a position and whether we should support the article. I think I'm convinced based on the argument that biodiversity is just part of the climate system and part of natural resources that it is, although I wouldn't want to be the leading group necessarily.
Right.
What do you think, Brad?
I think we should hear from Pamela first.
Is Pamela on the, Pamela, do you have a?
Yeah. If you care about the environment, this is as bad as DDT. We don't want a silent spring.
Okay, point made, good.
Yeah.
I don't see why you're having a discussion about it. Vote in favor.
Thanks, Pamela.
And I would like you to make a list of those pest control companies and those online rodenticide things that you can buy that contain it and publish it on the town website. That is not advocating or disadvocating any private business. It is simply giving us the information that we need to be informed citizens and good consumers. And it really irritates me the way we're not allowed to have anybody recommend what the good heat pump installers are versus not good heat pump installers. We need to have some way of getting around that problem. But anyway, that's something, sorry. But please, that would be something that you could do that would really help.
Say, don't buy these poisons and name them, right? Because they're not called escars, they're called
Right.
like dimafroxone and other words I can't
Exactly.
pronounce.
The same with neonicotinoids.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we have to move on.
Yes.
Decide it. Right, so,
I'd like to make a motion. I move that we, as a committee, endorse a favorable action on this warrant article, at town meeting.
I'll second that.
okay. Any more discussion? All in favor of, Climate Action Committee, supporting the article, and Paul has his hand up, so we're, unanimous.
Unanimous.
Thank you, we appreciate your support.
Okay, thank you for
Thank you for
coming.
doing that.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And I have to go put my kids to bed.
The next thing, on the agenda was the, MCI Concord Redevelopment Committee. That is, we have a, in addition to the public session, there was, I sent around the project updates that was written by, John Boynton. And, there's a request from groups to respond to, about, the MCI Concord and their, I can
I can pull it up if you'd like.
put it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to put that on the screen?
Yep, you can do that.
Take it back over here.
I think we all know it's a important development. So I'll just,
We're talking about.
there we go.
this,
It's
yeah.
the there's some stuff here, but the first, where it says first, group response request is pretty much what we're talking about. And then publicizing those community workshops we already mentioned. So, I have a few thoughts, but let me not start with me, on comments that we want to make as a committee.
I certainly have some. Well, first of all, I know what you think too, but it's perfect for a big ground source heat pump community. Can't remember the right phrase.
Network.
Network geothermal, thank you. Because it's completely open and new.
Right. I would, to support what you said, it's ideal because they have a wastewater treatment plant there, which is a thermal resource, and they also have a river there. And they're also designing it from the ground up. So it'll be all new buildings, presumably, if there are buildings on the site.
Excuse my ignorance, but how does the river help?
Well, water is a
Heat sink.
thermal, yeah, it's a heat
Okay.
sink. Both ways, you can get heat out of it and you can put heat into it. There might be environmental impacts to it, but they'd be very, very small. According to what the people from Heat said. So it certainly is a property that we're thinking about for network geothermal. What about uses? What sorts of uses, Jerry, do you think about for,
Well, I don't know if I have an opinion on the best future use, but I think somehow whatever we end up with there, it needs to what's the right word here? It needs to connect with the train. We need to build something here that does not expand does not expand automobile transportation requirements.
right,
So, the West Concord train station is not too far away, but it is a little, it's not exactly around the corner.
I think
right,
it's about half a mile.
So I think I would like to see something there that reduces the vehicular traffic.
right. Um,
Or at a minimum, does not expand them.
right.
Yeah.
Now, there's a couple of things. I mean, one, along those lines, I wrote down that, you could put a park and ride there. People coming up the highway, they could get off and either get onto the train or carpool in or something like that. That's
Yeah,
one
except
thing,
that
but,
indirectly promotes the use of automobiles. If they're gonna do a park and ride, hopefully they would get on a train at a station closer to them. But now I'm realizing, as I'm thinking about this, that for people in Concord who don't live near the train station, they could park there and ride the train in.
yeah, for example,
I,
it may or may not be a good place for that, but yeah. I kind of, yeah. And then I put that having a local, thinking it, planning for it to be, like you said, don't just build out parking, build out a shuttle to West Concord and Acton and Concord Center from there, that just
Yeah.
becomes part of the way you live.
right, right.
You've already got the rail trail right
Yeah.
there, which is, would
Of course,
take
the
you
rail
to
trail is right
to the
there.
station. I think you mentioned park. And the section that's close to the river should be open space park. I think.
Yeah,
There's also, looking at the aerial views, there's already an athletic field there. Just so it should be retained or another one built so that to have an athletic field there would be good.
there's an athletic field on the site already?
Yeah, if you look at if you look at the aerial photographs, yeah.
Okay, yeah, within the prison.
Yeah. I think the mixed use, I mean, I would like to see something that already resembles the West Concord Village with shops and housing above. Shops like a hardware store might be nice to have, which there isn't in West Concord.
Yeah,
I think parking requirements should be minimal to encourage people to not have cars.
yeah. How about Paul? He hasn't said much. Have you been thinking about the MCI?
Not really. Um, it's obviously something we have to think about, though.
Okay. I mean, anybody can give their comments to the, and it does workshops, of course. Brad, you have some ideas.
I have, yeah. I wish that we had figured out a way to shoehorn in our transportation briefing for Mothers Out Front. As somebody who walks extensively in West Concord,
Yeah,
I'll tell you, the last thing I want is to see more vehicular traffic, more ways through. And it is dangerous to walk on Main Street. It is dangerous to try to connect through a parking lot to the shops that I want to go to, or to the bike trip. And here with this parcel, you know, we've got an opportunity to develop potentially a planned community, a planned neighborhood.
yeah,
And in good planned neighborhoods, you don't put the sidewalk on the road. And you make it safe and welcoming and pleasant to walk and to bike. So, you know, thinking about the stop bullet point on that letter, among the things that I most want to stop is this feeling that the sidewalk and the road and the bike traffic go together.
yeah,
Because they don't need to if you're building something new.
right,
And it should be, we should be centering the needs of people and not centering the needs of transport.
okay,
So that's one thought that I have. I concur with the idea that this should really be seen as a mixed use kind of place. And you know, it's said all the time that like you would never be able to build the kinds of neighborhood districts that people actually like the Mill Dam, where the doorfront is on the sidewalk right up against, because zoning doesn't allow that kind of development now. Well, we've got some lead time.
yeah,
Let's stop bad zoning and start good zoning and make a mixed use neighborhood that people would actually want.
You know, it just occurred to me as you're describing this, I mean, a well-designed mixed-use neighborhood itself reduces vehicular traffic.
It absolutely does. If you make it feel safe and pleasant and fun and vibrant by using design and zoning as a tool, you know, it just has the potential to be something that people don't want to drive through. And that you wouldn't feel right driving, you wouldn't feel safe driving through it if you did.
I'm thinking, yes, to all that, but what I'm thinking is, to use a hardware store example. If you have a hardware store in that mixed-use development, you don't have to drive across town.
Yeah.
To pick up a washer, you know, a hose. So, I think those kind of go together.
Mhm.
The other thing that I have been thinking about while I've been thinking about this is I'm remembering back to some of the work that was done in the winter responsive to MassDOT wanting to add lanes on Route 2.
Mm.
You know that as a DCAM property, there's gonna be some kind of pressure, some kind of conversation.
Yep.
With MassDOT about capturing a significant amount of that territory to give MassDOT options for fixing the rotary. Fixing the rotary is, I'm sure, a very popular opinion. I have seen sunrise over the Concord Rotary far too many times in my life. I do not want good land that can be used to build a community for people to be used to build off-ramps and on-ramps for MassDOT to fix the rotary. That's not right. And if the punchline of all of it is that significant portions of Route 2 are going to end up 3-lane highway, 6-lane highway, no, that's a thing which I would want to stop.
right, no,
Yes,
yeah,
I totally agree.
And
agree with
I
that.
think that there will be at some point in that conversation, if not already, DCAM is going to hear that argument, and we need to make sure that we're making an argument
okay,
that runs counter to that. and presenting that as a unified opinion of the town.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, so, I think we're probably all, I had written, we want to ease traffic without widening the highway at all. Does it necessarily, if you did an overpass, as opposed to you free up space and you need additional space, does it necessarily take more?
I am not an expert on highway construction,
Okay.
but I will tell you as somebody who has worked for an adjacent legislative district, the amount of complexity that you enter into when you're adjacent to a wetland, it could very well mean that they need more land. And that's not necessarily something that we would know or be able to know because we don't know all of the design options that they are seriously entertaining.
Okay,
Must you use more land for a flyover? Not necessarily, if the ground allows for it,
yeah,
but that's a big if.
okay, how do we know that, I guess,
I mean, you look back at the maps that we were looking at whenever it was in November or whatever. When we were writing that letter to about Route 2, there were 3 different options of maps there, and one of them was using the entire parking lot area for the prison to do off-ramps. Or an off-ramp and an on-ramp, I think. It was a big loop. And there are excellent arguments to make for traffic calming for why you would do it that way.
right,
But I don't want to see that option. I don't want that option to be seriously entertained. That's a terrible use of land. Using good land to make it so that you get more car throughput is not what
well,
we want to use that land for.
well, I'm thinking of it, as bicycles going over the highway. Or
Well, you
something,
do-
right now, that's a nightmare, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, but you have the bike, Bruce River Rail Trail, which will get you over the highway with a very.
That's not, it
It's a s-
doesn't
it's a
go
slight
from Concord
detour.
Center to,
You can get to Trader Joe's very easily.
But importantly,
Yeah.
the people who live on 2A coming out of the Rotary, past the CMLP office, those
Yeah.
people are disconnected from town. And I don't believe there's a way to get to the bike path from
From
those
Elm
houses.
Street, you're talking about
Well, you
the other
can
side of the
easily-
road, so we, on Elm Street, is that?
No,
what
up
you mean?
2A.
Yeah.
There are
Just
people live
2A,
on
But
2A.
it's still called, I thought it was still called Elm Street, that 2A, the
Yeah.
other side of
Yeah,
the
it is.
road.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, I agree, they are totally cut off.
Well,
So,
there's new sidewalk that goes down to the old Acorn building where the bike trail is. So,
yeah,
I think the other thing that I'm hearing is just the whole consideration of the culture of being a diverse, socioeconomic group. And I don't know what happened with the idea of low income, senior housing. Assisted living kind of thing. And I think, maybe that's clearly beyond the scope of you all, but. As you think about what's needed for the community. And, low income housing for individuals is a huge issue.
yeah,
And there is this whole housing that's going in across the river from MCI. That won't have much low income housing. They'll have some, but not much.
The section of, next to the prison was set aside for low income senior
right,
housing,
you mean
that,
Junction Village?
and that project totally fell
Yeah,
through.
Junction,
Right,
But that
still
land
here.
is separate from the prison and could still be used for that purpose.
Yeah.
Mark,
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, so that, I think that's a very good point, and a number of people have brought that up, that it's adjacent, the prison property is adjacent to an area that's given to the town with the requirement that it be for affordable housing. So another point to make is about, integration of those two uses of those two areas, and I think there's some natural resource, supposed to be developed there. If I might mention a couple other quick things. This morning we had a transportation advisory committee meeting, and one of the things last minute, just like you were challenged to respond to this, we responded and we wrote some, bullet points about development should not be car centric. You shouldn't create an island that you can only get to by an automobile. We should have good pedestrian and bicycle connectivity to West Concord and the MBTA station. So there's going to be a lot of parallel input. Hopefully we can reinforce each other. I would
Yeah.
also mention one other thing that it'd be good to incorporate open space and vegetated areas for rainwater infiltration and to reduce heat island effects, and also, it also enhances the livability
Okay,
area. So, again, I think getting these kind of inputs into the process early,
yeah,
so maybe the April 30th deadline is a good thing. They won't have to be tried to design around existing gigantic buildings put in somebody's lane. To get them in early.
could you say your comment again about the heat island effects? And
I would just say to incorporate open space and vegetated areas for rainwater infiltration and to reduce heat island effects, and enhance livability or whatever. I don't know if I want to say it, but.
I want to say it like that.
I think the first sentence did not create an island.
Yeah, only accessible by cars. That's. The rotary is kind of a big
Black hole.
elephant in the room.
right. Ted,
It seems to me that a number of the concerns that we're bringing up are things that other groups will also be
Right.
interested in sharing, but I think the Climate Action Committee might be the only voice for network geothermal.
yeah,
And it seems to me that it seems to me a no-brainer that with this entire new neighborhood that is presumably going to have commercial and residential properties, that it's an ideal situation. And as you said, the waste treatment plant in the river. And I think that it's the Climate Action Committee that has the opportunity to voice that priority.
certainly. And so I should mention that I've been in touch with Dan Gainsborough and Peter Lowett, who are on the kind of land use planning. They've engaged a consultant to do energy issues. And we should talk to them to see what they're thinking. It's some German name. I can't remember the name of it, but it's someone who they're thinking about this. They're not, but
But do we know that they're thinking specifically about network geothermal, or just that they're thinking about energy?
Well, I think they're thinking about both. And they're certainly not ignorant of it, but we should make our point because we want to see it happen.
The other thing is native plants rather than exotic plants,
Yes.
and native trees, not exotic wasteful trees.
Yeah.
You don't need any more ginkgos.
Okay. So I had put, let's see.
I think Paul has his hand up.
No, I just want to say, I support all these suggestions. To make this a really sort of a showcase for resiliency and mitigation and adaptation. So thank you everybody for these good suggestions.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know the configuration of the land. I think it's pretty flat, but, rain gardens and things like that
Yeah.
to,
So is the MCI Concord Committee, do they have a view or any? So the Junction Village property is totally separate.
Yeah.
But are they also thinking about that in a holistic way?
You know, Megan might want to comment on, I think everybody wants integrated, whether they can because of the deed, because the
Yeah.
land is deeded to, for the low income. Or just for the lower, the affordable housing.
Yeah, the parcel in question does not include the Junction Village parcel, but the planning effort that the advisory board is undertaking is considering that parcel.
Yeah.
So,
But understanding that there are additional restrictions, as Wendy said, for what is currently allowed, but they're really, it's, you know, as you can see here, it's how could you look at the site without thinking about,
I'm trying to look at that,
Yeah,
trying to
too.
figure out what is what.
oh, is it
There's the
not the
rotary.
best
You have
one?
to
Yeah,
find the
we have the
rotary.
rotary here, we have Warner's Pond,
All right,
MBTA station here. This is
is that part of the prison?
this is the
area?
parking lot across the way, and I mean, part of this is
The cemetery.
the cemetery, which is not ever gonna be touched, so it's a little bit
Oh, the
misleading
cemetery.
to show the whole parcel, but it's the
Mhm.
land parcel, so the parking lot is really over here.
Yeah,
And the bike path goes right along here.
And which part is the Junction Village?
This
Right
darker
there.
purple, yeah.
okay,
And the other part, the bright pink is the pedestrian bridge that's gonna go in.
Pedestrian
And
bridge.
that's over the Assabet?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's, yeah, that will connect to
Those are all
the
the
Baker,
development things.
it's
Right.
connecting the West Concord train station to Baker Avenue
That's
Extension, I
right.
believe.
To the Baker Ave extension.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's still making progress.
So we want to make a committee response using, I jotted down all the ideas I heard.
Well, I
Um,
jotted down what I heard too. But I want to confirm. I mean, I wouldn't put it in the minutes, so.
right.
Can I make a
would-
suggestion?
Yeah,
Can
Sure.
you consider suggesting that in addition to network geothermal, we have energy storage by battery and solar canopies whenever possible? Because that will save the entire town immense amount of money as electricity gets more expensive for non-solar battery storage. We also won't have to pay for distribution charges because we would be generating our own power. Every,
um,
we need to incentivize developers to include solar and battery storage with everything, because that will allow us to do distributed power that has all of these wonderful things cheaply.
yeah,
Without-
well, I mean, you mentioned canopies. And
Yeah.
solar canopies are considered expensive, but solar
Roofs,
There are gonna be a lot of roofs.
roofs
yeah,
are
roofs,
less so.
yes.
Need some
Just
ground
solar without specifying,
Yeah,
aside
okay.
from don't cut down trees to put solar.
there is ground mounted on the property.
Would you say that again?
There's ground mounted on, over the, there's some old bed, what do you call those things, beds for the water treatment plant, there's solar out there already.
Oh, okay, there is solar on
Yeah,
it.
there's-
Great
That's all-
idea too.
Right.
Covering, sewage and things with solar is a great idea.
Okay,
Maybe that's in the continued bucket.
okay,
But also storage, we need to recommend storage. It to be
yeah,
built with the solar in the right proportion such that we end up with really cheap superpower in the long run.
In the long run.
okay,
If you don't ask for it, you don't get it.
That's true.
right.
And we got to move the Overton window, right?
Move the what?
Overton.
Shifting the universe of debate more in our direction by asking.
Okay,
So, you know, a lot of our discussion is. It ends up being about, you know, can we reduce the energy usage and, you know, or is it an emission focus the right way? And, you know, how much can we reduce it by? When we're building something new, I don't ever want anybody to say the words net zero, because you can be better than zero.
Yeah, yeah, we can provide our own. Yeah,
right, could be better than zero. It's a question of whether that's the best use for the community.
Well, we have emission
It
reduction
is.
targets that we need to hit for 2050. Being better than zero in this district
No, I-
would help tremendously. And being net zero will not help at all.
Yeah,
That's right.
That is true, so, I mean. if you
Pamela,
have-
thanks for your comments, by the way.
If you have
Uh,
it better
we'll
than that zero,
let's
you,
discuss it.
you take the pressure off the rest of the town to, you know, do all the other things that
Okay.
we want them to do.
So if we say-
Precisely, and Pamela's point, if we want to be pushing people's thinking in our direction, you shift the terms of the conversation to be talking about better than zero in the hope
Right.
that you'll pull people, you know, over.
Sure.
people should be able to be paid money
Let's,
for the
let's,
power.
right.
And
Let's
it-
have the
it's
committee
cheaper to
talking
buy it
about it.
from each other.
Thank you for your comments.
Sorry.
So, okay, so an emissions-free development. With, including enough solar to more than offset the energy use. Is what we'd like to say.
And storage. Battery storage.
Thank you, Pamela. We heard your comments. Yeah, okay,
So there's a related notion here that may or may not be a good way to, or a good thing to add into the conversation. Haven't thought about it until this moment. But to make that area a microgrid, which basically means that electrically it could stand on its own, in part by the generation of energy that's needed, and in part by separating itself from the rest of the town, should there be issues with the distribution.
okay,
So this is a bit of an advanced concept, but there are communities that are doing this.
What is self-sustaining?
Yeah.
okay,
Can you say
So
that again?
it's-
Is that not sure?
It's
Understood.
called a microgrid,
Okay.
which means that it is a grid unto
Onto
itself
itself.
and can be connected to or separated from the townwide grid. So the value of this is that, let's say we had, some big storms, as we often do, lines go down in different parts of town. A microgrid can separate from the rest of the town and not be affected. So it limits the exposure to destructive events. And it can be cost effective because the amount of energy that's generated is sized to support that community by itself.
okay,
So it's a very forward-looking notion of updating the grid.
okay,
So a counter argument here, to be fair about it, is CMLP does a great job of getting power back up once
Right.
it goes down. So that mitigates the attractiveness to a certain extent of having a microgrid, because there'd be fewer
right,
needs to separate. But
And if the neighborhood is
Yeah.
going to be a net exporter of energy, it needs to be connected to the.
well, yeah. Well, I think it goes without saying that it would be connected to the town. This is a question of being able to separate from the town when desired.
okay,
So it falls more generally into the category that we haven't addressed much in this town of resiliency to electrical catastrophes.
Right.
yeah,
which is huge.
Yeah, you know, um,
Okay.
yeah, I'll leave it at that. I can give you more info later if you wanted to.
Right, would you be willing to write up something?
I'll write up something on it.
And we need to write a committee response to send, I mean, we don't need to, we are asked if we can give a group response to the MCI committee. How should we do that? Should we send, man, if Jerry's writes this up, this section up,
Mhm.
should we send other sections to Jerry or have Jerry send a section to somebody else to,
Well, I can
of the,
write this up as minutes, and then you can,
Cut and paste.
you can cut and paste and make it into a report for MCI people.
Yeah, I kind of imagine, you know, a report with some general description at the beginning, introduction to the notions, and then one by one, we list these things we've talked about. You know,
Okay.
reduced vehicular traffic, not be an island, you know, develop a microgrid, having a paragraph or however much on each one of those. And so that would be easy to integrate into an overall letter. When does this need to be prepared, by the way?
when's it need to be?
April 30th.
30th.
April 30th.
They did not give us.
You know, in fact, I don't think that's a very hard deadline. But it's what their request is.
I think it's important though to get it in soon because they're
Yeah.
going to have public facing material at the drop-in sessions, one presumes, which is also on the
Yeah.
30th. So like, the sooner we get something into them, the likelier that the things that they're gonna be saying out to the town are gonna be halfway responsive to what we put in.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, Mark,
Yeah, thanks. I'm just gonna say, I mentioned for the Transportation Advisory Committee this meaning that there's a benefit to getting things in early and we'll have plenty of time to add these, but I think, you know, whether you want to call it preliminary suggestions, preliminary thoughts, you know.
Yeah. okay,
I would feel very free. The letters definition, the letters questions seem very vague to me for, you know, input from all kinds of areas of the public and everybody. So I would be fine, whatever you think.
Yeah.
Get some, words in quick. That's what I would suggest.
So I'm not in a position to write anything, but I'm in a position to send stuff to. Would you and Janet, would you and Jerry want to collaborate on a letter, maybe?
Could do that, works with you, Jerry?
Yeah, I think what I would request though is from each of you two, just these short paragraphs
Yeah,
on each topic, whether that's however many topics are on your mind.
okay,
Right, and then Janet and I can put it together.
we'll send it to you by the end of this week. Even in a day or two,
It's okay.
is that?
Yeah.
That'd be great, fantastic.
And I will
Can I suggest?
I
that
will
why
write
don't
up
you
the
just-
minutes so that's in
one person
the way I
takes the
see
lead?
it, so you get
Just
another.
From an open meeting law thing. Suggest that one person, you're gonna designate one person to take the lead and everyone else can volunteer their input to that
Okay.
person. Just do it that way. Otherwise, you just created a subcommittee by appointing two people to
Okay.
the task.
So-
Just have one person take the lead and everyone volunteers input. to
For
that
that
individual.
matter, even I think if they each write to one person.
Right, if
even
you
that
get-
is
that's-
considered, even that is considered deliberation, so.
And it doesn't.
But you can volunteer, but.
Yeah, but if you do it like out of the blue without agreeing to, yeah, that's
Right,
a different.
Just
story.
volunteer to share your, individuals can volunteer to share
Yes.
input.
Yeah.
It's the way to do it.
Okay, who should we send the material to?
Whoever's taking. the
I think
lead.
you send it to Jerry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, send it to Janet.
Can't do, why, what?
I'm just trying to think, so I won't get to it this week. Yeah, send it to me. And
Or we
I'll
could-
figure out how to work with you, Janet.
Okay,
But I'll be the single point of,
But I mean,
So
you,
it's-
if you're
it's
focused
linked.
on the microgrid net low, net negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there was
Thing.
also, I mean, if you do the bulleted points of what needs to get covered.
Yeah.
You know, the shuttle, to reduce,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be,
and natural resources and, mixed housing. I mean, you've got each of those right there.
yeah,
Well, and the water treatment plant being part of the
so there's, okay,
geothermal.
there's one, I think, troubling aspect here, and that is
yeah.
without violating open meeting laws, how do we get the committee to view this and
No, I
accept
think, we're not talking about a beautiful piece of prose that's being published. I think if we get our bullet points as the things we've talked about,
right, but my point is, let's say you send me something and if I need to edit it in any way, make any change to it,
edited away,
but the committee doesn't see that.
it's okay,
Committee's delegating to you.
yeah.
That's the way to think of it.
Okay, and basically then I have, and
Carte blanche.
yes,
Based on what
Absolutely.
was discussed.
yeah, based on what,
Yeah.
okay. All right, that works. I've just never, I've been very careful about open meeting laws issues on things like this.
Yeah.
So I've always had the committee approve what I've previously written,
It's always.
but
nice.
you're giving me pre-approval here. So I'll go to town.
Do we still have an obligation to report that back and make that a public document as part of our record
I would think so.
At the next meeting,
at the next meeting? Yeah.
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 I
Tanya,
was also going to suggest, I'm not sure about the exact law detail here. But it's also helpful if you just post it on your website once it's prepared. That way, everybody sees it at the same time.
yeah. We've been very bad at putting anything on the website. And I think we need to work on that.
I can get it up there. once we
Go ahead.
have
I'm
it.
really looking at you.
He is looking at me, yeah.
Okay. Very good. I think we gotta move ahead. Because we're falling behind. The last two items on the agenda are the climate action and resilience plan review. And the just other updates. I guess I wanted a quick step to, so right now it's like 25 of. And we're kind of like 25 minutes behind. I was gonna suggest we go to the other updates. Talk about the letter that we did. That we sent into the bridge. And I want to apologize that I sent it in from all of us. And then went on vacation, and then it was published as being from me. And that was not intentional. Makes me look great, but it was. The bridge had it was a form, I filled it in, I put exactly everybody's names on it. I had to edit it down to 300 words, so I did a little bit of a couple of snipping at the end. But I regret that they published it from me, and I don't know if we should
Well,
send a correction or,
I was thinking we should request a correction and ask to republish the letter with the correct authorship. And that basically gives us another more eyes to see it.
okay. I don't know if they're gonna do that, but
But even the
can-
correction will bring it to people's attention.
Right, at
Yeah.
a minimum, the correction,
yes, okay,
but, you know, ask for more.
ask for more, okay. I'm willing to do that. I just haven't had time to, okay. I will,
Has there been any response? Anyone comment on it to you?
oh, I've had people send me emails saying that they loved the letter.
Good.
And I think it was a good letter. Uh, but yeah, I'm gonna send that tomorrow. I wonder if they can do it for this week. I might be able to do it for this week. I'll call them as well. See you, Ted.
Sorry.
The other part of this is then following up. Because this letter said that we were going to do some stuff. In particular, get involved in a large, a larger forum or something of municipal climate sustainability groups. And I did, I sent it to a copy to Fred Davis, the president of MCAN, because I think they are the most reasonable group to try to organize such a forum.
And what was his response?
And I think he liked it. I think he likes the idea. I'm gonna have a chance to talk to him next week at the Mass Energize Conference. They are also organizing and it's kind of, no, it's totally separate, but they have a group of people from different communities working on the emissions, emissions targets for the state and how that translates to communities. This is more, how do we resist policies from coming down from the federal?
Well, it's not just about resisting, it's about taking more aggressive actions.
Okay,
So
what are some ideas?
well, because it's on my mind. This ESCO agreement or ESCO RFQ that we're working on,
Yeah,
that could be a template for other communities. In fact, our version is based off of, not sure a template's the right word, but a pre-existing example that Salem created, the town of Salem. So, Eric, and I'm not sure who else, is working to modify
yeah,
that agreement. So a lot of this is boilerplate,
yeah,
but it's new,
right. So you're talking about making a repository.
something like that, making it available and helping other communities do what we're trying to do in terms of these energy audits and
Right,
roadmaps to reduce their carbon footprints.
yep,
This thing that MCAN is doing sounds like data collection.
that's the data collection, and it's separate,
Yeah, and I know,
This
and
is-
MCAN was successful for a short while with data collection from MLPs.
yeah,
So I'm just saying, I think we want to do more than data collection. We
Right.
need to come up with what will we do?
right,
So I don't have great suggestions at the moment, but
okay.
conceptually, that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, the letter is about pushing back on policies somehow.
I think we first have to identify which policies we want to push back on.
All of them.
Well,
But it's, I mean, the latest, did you hear the latest thing is that Trump's executive order that is gonna come out soon to take away the tax exempt status of climate organizations?
Oh, no, I hadn't heard that.
I heard about that.
This is the new one.
And, I mean, it has not yet happened, but.
Hasn't
that's what he's-
happened.
That, I thought it was, I heard that it was going to come out today on Earth Day, but it didn't. Yet.
Okay, yeah, that's one.
I mean, there's, it never seems to stop. And,
Yeah, I mean, I think that the courts would, whatever the courts can do these days,
right,
I mean, it wouldn't be legal. I mean, it's like they wanted to remove the tax exemption from Harvard, and Harvard fought back.
yes. Fight fiercely.
Yes,
So, I guess it's a question of yeah, identifying changes to policies and actions that are preventing us from making climate progress. And as a large group of municipalities, maybe extending past Massachusetts even somehow, being able to stand up as being opposed. Now,
Paul has his hand up.
Paul has his hand up. Paul, what's up?
No, keep going, Brad. And no, I was gonna say, this is more than just getting together to cooperate on climate. It's also actively banding together with other towns to say, we disagree with XYZ policy. It's just like a band of the universities have gotten together now and are pushing back against Trump. And everything I've heard is saying people have got to get together as groups, large groups, to push back. And so my original thinking on this was, say all the municipalities in Massachusetts, or all municipalities in the Northeast, or all municipalities in the United States got together and started saying, you know, these policies are from Trump and are unrealistic and they're harmful to our citizens. So I hope I don't, you know, I emailed Melissa Hoffer, who's the state climate chief, who I used to live in Concord, and I know her from a bunch of stuff about this idea of what communities we could talk to, what groups we could talk to. And she also mentioned MCAN, ICLEI, and also MMA. What's MCAN?
Massachusetts Climate Action Network.
Okay.
And
Well,
what they did
so-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but I think it's more than just getting together to exchange information. It's actively, you know, pushing back and trying to build a large coalition of towns to use the political power to push back.
Now, MCAN, I think it's a natural spot to start.
Right,
They have infrastructure. They're used to doing,
right. I mean, they have a
Similar
mission
things.
that is,
they have a mission that's,
very much aligned with this.
yeah.
Is it based by town or is it just a,
Yeah, it's a network of chapters in different towns, and mostly grassroots chapters, but most of those grassroots chapters are tied into their municipalities.
okay, because we have to get this, you know, the Concord town government behind this to,
Right, so I guess you gotta have. You have to have goals and and some sort of a deadline to accomplish something. Not infinite, but something doable. Maybe it's you know, a specific set of harmful policies that you want to oppose, and then letters to municipalities to sign on to. Yes.
can we get the town government to endorse our thinking on this? So there's, you know, it's an official position of the town.
depending on exactly what we write down, what we set out, I don't see why not, but it has to be, you know, it has to not be political. It has to be about, I mean, willing to ask, where are the boundaries? We can't do politics, but we can advocate policy.
Yeah, I think that it'd probably be working with the select board on, kind of specific.
Yeah, what are the goals that you're going
Asks.
after? You have to be specific.
I am thinking, we talked a little bit about the, watershed coalition, you know, not exactly the same, but I mean, that is an effort. That we're applying for funds to
Yeah.
get together with a group of
Right,
municipalities to look at resilience and, you know,
right.
and I think I agree with you that the strength is in numbers, you know, and I was even thinking today about the presentation we heard earlier about the SCARs.
Yeah,
That's an effort, a local effort, but I think that there's also folks that are involved in that in other communities. And so I think that's an issue that folks feel passionately about and are kind of, there's probably someone, you know, kind of chipping away at a map of like, where can we accomplish more of this? You know,
Right.
that's and there's
Right.
more things they care about, but that's, you know, one item that they're kind of mapping out campaigns. And I think that's
right. So if you know,
effective.
when you get the strength in numbers for SCARs, you no longer need the home rule petition. The assembly just passes it. If
Ideally. Yeah.
if everybody is, if there's enough pressure. So I don't, you know, we're not gonna like resolve it entirely, but I think if we, I think maybe again, also for next meeting, we should be thinking about can't be against everything. There's a set of things that we want to push back on.
Well, I think
And-
before we get to that, we need a little organizational planning,
Okay,
which you mentioned a moment ago of, you know, what are our goals? How do we see ourselves achieving those goals? Who do we think we can bring into this? And part of that would be informed by a listing or an understanding of the issues we want to push back on. But
yeah,
I think that the meat of that comes,
almost later.
yeah. And so I'm
Okay.
thinking,
Good point.
I think you were headed in this direction anyway, is at the next meeting, our next meeting, you spend some time talking about those specific items. You know,
Okay,
what are our goals? How do we see ourselves getting to them? Who can we bring into this?
okay,
Ideally, we could do some homework on all that before then, but
okay.
might be optimistic.
I'm happy to talk to Fred some more and try to see what, you know, if MCAN was to try to put this coalition together, what would be a set of goals they could take on
Yeah,
in terms of like, there would have to be, you know, lists of people with names to contact. They have to be contacted. There'd have to be a set of pretty large or inclusive forums to figure out what the goals are going to be. How do we get there? And
but we can take our rough cut at that first. We would need
okay,
to,
you can propose that. Yeah,
you know, sort of as a straw man before we call a meeting of 30 communities
or 300.
or 300.
Yeah. Well, I guess goals are would be materials to bring to assuming we have a platform to, you know, a policy platform we want to advocate. we would want materials to, to be put together to, advocate positions to select boards and town councils, city councils and, across the state. We'd have to decide the size of, are we just Massachusetts?
Start at home,
What?
start at home.
Start at home, but,
Yeah,
we know it has not the impact, but yeah, okay. So maybe this near term and longer term goals.
Yeah, I just don't want to try and boil the ocean.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
can I say something? Yeah, no,
sure.
I'm also exploring options with MAPC. Because they're obviously linked into the communities around here. And also there's the Metro Mayors Coalition of Metro Boston, who are dealing with climate change. I don't think we can join them, but so I'm just sort of informally talking to groups that might be helpful to us. Is that okay for me to do?
Yeah,
And I'm
Sure.
just saying, this is a member of the committee. We wrote this letter. We're looking for groups to join.
Right.
Other municipalities to join with us. And I just want, so is that okay? No
Yes.
commitments on my part or their part?
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
no, absolutely. Because it's information gathering and it's coalition building. Without making promises.
Yeah, that's exactly what's right.
Any comments, Brad? Tanya?
I mean, as we've got,
Yeah.
it's 5 minutes to 9.
Yes, we have,
For this coalition, I would also recommend conservation groups, Sierra Club and other conservation groups, I can think of them now, Center for Biodiversity. As well as it was wonderful to hear this morning at Concord Can about agriculture, so there's
Yeah.
some agricultural groups, so.
we're not trying to build we're specifically thinking about, municipal groups. Pretty much, and,
So,
which is who we're in the water with.
well, you've got Mass Energize. And that's a lot of community groups, is it not?
It's not an advocacy organization.
Okay,
That is, we try to stay in our lane,
mhm,
but there's there's overlaps.
right.
I don't know if it's
Yeah.
relevant or not, but you mentioned MCAN, there's also Mass ECAN, they have a conference May 1st at Clark University in Worcester. It says, Mass ECAN conferences are an opportunity to connect with community of peers, learn, share about climate adaptation efforts throughout the state, and grow capacity. It's connected with UMass Amherst. And so anyway, I can send this to
When did you say that date was?
May 1st.
That's coming right up.
But anyway, I'll send you the page.
Yes, okay,
And you can send it to people. I think
we'll
we
send
should
it around.
all look for organizations that are statewide.
Okay. Which organization was that? You said? I didn't hear it well.
Mass ECAN.
Mass ECAN.
Sounds.
Haven't heard of it.
The other.
Okay. Okay, so we have yeah, God, it's hard to get through these agendas. I think there's too much stuff on there.
Mhm.
So we're not gonna get to the climate action plan. We touched on composting, talking with you earlier. Can
I mention it for a minute?
Yes, absolutely.
I know we're at the end of the evening, but, we didn't really get to it last time too much, but Eric sent out that presentation, I think, to everyone that outlines, kind of the project as it is with some of the options. And, I'm curious to hear people's thoughts on it in general and on the options, and I've been thinking about, I think we talked a little bit, either you and I, Brad, or maybe some other members at the meeting about doing some data collection or
Exactly.
survey, and so I haven't done that yet, but I think that might be helpful for,
Yes,
discussion.
I was gonna suggest that that somebody put a list of survey questions together.
Yeah, work on that.
And which would be open to, it could be open to the whole town, but also, you know, because we interested in what people think about composting, about the need for such a service in general.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't even know what we have. But specifically also with QR codes at the station.
Yeah,
And find out what, you know, who's using it, where they live,
yeah,
as much about like, you know, why are they doing it? And which is, you know, we know why they're doing it, but what their needs are, if that will help us.
yeah, I think that the best option, I don't have it up here, it's right down, but one of the options is that I think was the preferred option. It was if budget's available, which it could be, okay, to go up. I think it's like 7,000 right now. This would bring it up to 10,500, and I could move some things around to make that happen. And that would make it to twice a week pickups,
Right.
and that would eliminate or remediate the overflow issue, some of the public health concerns that I, also
Right.
have and others have. But once we get quotes for things over $10,000, we hit a new procurement threshold. So that means we need to go out to bid, or not out to bid, like we need to get
Yeah.
more kind of a formal process.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing either. I think this is
Right.
this
but
is an
it-
opportunity to evaluate what do we want in this program and kind of review, this is what we have, is this meeting the needs? But to do that, we need to kind of understand who's using it.
Exactly.
So I don't think that reevaluating the program at this time is a bad idea. I think it's like timing wise, it's actually okay. And not saying we're gonna eliminate, but do we need to increase the funding? Do we need to change locations? Are we meeting the needs that, how are we kind of solving for items in the climate action plan specifically?
Yep.
So, but I think I hear you, and like I said, I haven't done anything on it yet, but that we need more information. Are there other things we need, I guess, I'd like to hear from the committee, as we're looking for this, like who's using it?
Right, and so,
So who's the survey going out to?
I like the idea of the QR codes on the units,
Okay,
because I think that would, I think we might also have a historical list, so if I could,
so.
I'm not thinking of this as going to the masses, but it could, if we were gonna say who wants to
does the
use it.
town have a survey tool?
I'm sure we do.
If you do,
Yes.
because one of the
Yeah.
things that we just did, my nonprofit did a small survey, and it was small enough so that people who filled the thing in twice got counted twice, and then it's like, oh my God, but fortunately the
We could
tool
do it on
knows,
Teams, yeah, we could.
knows IP addresses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
and it,
I mean, it would be nice to know why people are not using it as well.
Right,
And,
that's,
and quite a few of them, I imagine, are doing their own composting.
right,
Right, I am worried about raising a ton of awareness to a program that's already pretty at capacity through that,
okay.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I,
hey, we have this great resource that's already filled up and,
no, I guess we can't promise things, but, yeah. We gotta, in order to know what the right solution is, gotta figure out. Because it might be kind of too inconvenient as it is. Who knows?
I just wanted to throw in there that the Sunshine kids at the high school are gonna be reaching out to you about,
they did,
okay.
yes, sorry to cut you off.
No, that's fine. You know what I'm talking about.
I do, there is a group, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, there's a high school group that did meet with Eric last week, who's our sustainability director. And they were not aware of our current program and were thinking of, and correct me if this is not, I'm just skimming through the emails, but they wanted to do something like this, I think. They
Oh.
wanted, and it's like, well, we do have something and I know Eric has met with them and gave them some context and gave them some other folks to talk to, public health, our solid waste collection, to understand some of the context. But they were looking, I think, for thinking about a future town meeting article for,
For
let me
curbside
see
stuff?
exactly what it is. They were looking for a ratepayer plan negotiated with the entire town with a composting company such as Black Earth. It's currently households, this is what they wrote, currently households must pay for themselves and drop off the compost at one or two different locations. So maybe they did understand, but I
Yeah.
think there's, you know, as we've kind of talked about this, our pilot program has evolved a little bit and I
Right.
don't, we're not keeping it as tight as it was designed to be.
Right.
So they are on a research mission, I think, and they
Good
did,
for them.
they did meet, yeah, they did met with Eric. Eric tried to pull in some other folks, but everyone was 250th sunk last week so public health and solid waste were not available to connect, but that doesn't mean we won't down the line. I think we'll be happy to connect with them and bring them along as we're about, maybe they'll help, maybe they could help my survey questions. That could be kind of a nice, way to get interested youth involved.
So they're
Actually.
they're learning about it. starting
Yeah,
to
I like
think
that
about it.
idea.
Okay, so we're kind of out of time.
Okay.
Maybe
and
Pamela
it's a
can have
long
the
day.
last word. She's had her hand up for a while.
Pamela has her hand up. What?
I'll just make it short. I wanted to bring to your attention a horrifying New York Times article that said that Trump officials have proposed changing the interpretation of the Endangered Species Act to exclude habitat protection to change the word harm to exclude habitat protection, which would gut the entire law.
Yeah. No, that's
And
awful.
a
And
30-day public comment. Shouldn't we do that as a town, as a group?
I don't think we're in a position to do it as a group. But
I mean, we were lucky we have a method through endangered species to protect habitats, because who cares about a snail darter? What we care about is the forest that supports the snail darter so that it also supports us. Without the endangered species, there's no way that we ever that environmental protection is ever more important than commercial development.
agreed. I just, I think the natural resources, group should do that, who are knowledgeable enough. I don't know that,
Okay.
This was sort of my original point. There is no natural resources group that functions as an entity.
I know.
So that is why I think maybe this committee would be a good place to bring some of that into, in addition to the work you're doing, because for situations like this, everybody knows something needs to be done, but no entity in town that is charged with doing this.
I agree, and I would love to do it as a group, but we don't have time or another meeting to do it.
What's the deadline for comment, Pamela? If you're with us
She
still,
said 30 days.
yeah,
Uh,
but
Yeah,
30 days from when?
It says in the article 30 days from
May 19th. Is the end of the comment
We
period.
do have a meeting before that, right? No, we have a meeting on the 20th,
Yeah,
so we don't have a meeting
So we
before
can-
that.
You can
so
call
Write
one.
individual comments.
I think tons of individual comments are what we can do. I think Concord Can should rattle the community on this, of course.
Right. Well, we had a meeting this morning with,
Yeah.
um,
No, it's awful and it's obviously that we're not making enough profits here. And,
I think it's worse than that. There's a
Yeah.
meanness.
Yes.
you think
Oh,
it
yeah.
is?
Cruelty and everything.
Yeah, no,
That's,
it's,
I mean, they're totally destructive. I mean, like, on everything.
Yeah, everything.
To encourage drilling and logging, well, fossil fuel development on public land. To remove
Yep.
the restrictions.
we are 100% with you and we need to, push back on that. So let's, we'll send the information around about the comment period and where to put comments. And do our best to get comments in, I think, is what we can do. I gotta get out of here.
You're not the only one.
Is that the,
God,
thank you, everybody for coming. And,
Adjourn.
Pamela, do you
We're
have
adjourned.
the actual,
we need a vote. I think we need
workshop
a
is
vote.
actually done,
I think
so we have a
yeah.
reference?
Adjourning at 9:07.
9:07.
Just send it to me and I'll
It's in the
Signing
times.
off.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.